I had just received the power of the Creator, but the very next day, the hospital diagnosed me with terminal stomach cancer. In order to survive, I transformed the orchard in my hometown into a miniature sandbox world. I tried to accelerate the evolution and processes of living things, hoping that I could create a civilization that could cure cancer. The square sandbox was explored by the tiny humans inside, until one day they were stunned to discover that this world had a round sky and a square earth, and there was also a giant tree that pierced the heavens. Whenever a civilization didn't develop as I expected, I would scrap it and start all over. I would give the hero of each civilization a chance to ask me one question. Every time they asked me how many days it took to create the world, I thought back to when I dug the earth to make the sandbox. It took me a total of 7 days to create this land, and that was the origin of the story that God created all things. The legend that it took only 7 days thus spread throughout this land. Civilizations rose and fell in my sandbox, time and time again. But who would have thought that so many glorious and magnificent civilizations originated from a single spore? Back then, in the 100 mu sandbox in the orchard, I created a simulated shallow pond and adjusted the salinity until it became an ocean. In this central ocean, I placed a large number of insect spores and accelerated their cell division by 10,000 times. For every day that passed in the real world, 10,000 years would pass in the sandbox. But even so, it wasn't until the 5th day that these single-celled organisms began to evolve into plankton. The central ocean became visibly murky, so I quickly set genetic limitations to control the size of the spore-borne creatures, preventing them from evolving to be too large. On the afternoon of the 6th day, after 5 days in the ancient, single-celled ocean era, multi-celled organisms began to appear in the water. In just a few minutes, it was like a fast-forwarded nature documentary. Species were born and went extinct in mere seconds. Then a new generation would follow. But when the sun set, just as I had expected, the sandbox world faced its first great extinction. A long night of 12 hours meant this land would be without sunlight for 5,000 years. A vast number of underwater plants withered and sank to the seabed. Under the lifeless darkness, the environment in my sandbox was too small. The small number of living things was not enough to evolve new species adapted to the environment. But in my ocean, there were single-celled insect spores with extremely high adaptability. Half an hour after the moonlight shone down, a faint blue light appeared on the surface of the plant debris-covered water. It was an ant-sized, leaf-shaped blue plant. I never thought that without direct sunlight, this plant would switch its energy source for photosynthesis to the moon instead. I was thoroughly amazed. I named it cerulean silver grass. After this plant survived the first great extinction, it began to evolve rapidly in just a few seconds. The cerulean silver grass adapted to the darkness with crazed fervor. They spread across the water's surface like lotus leaves to absorb the moonlight over my garden in a wide area. After another hour, it had gone through tens of thousands of generations of evolution. It started to branch out into many species, developing into 2 main types. One part of the cerulean silver grass continued to absorb moonlight, increasing its energy conversion efficiency. But the other part became carnivorous, using the absorbed moonlight to emit a faint glow to lure other cerulean silver grass to float towards them, then devoured them. Seeing this, I couldn't help but marvel at the wonder and resilience of life. The only surviving aquatic plant had thrived in the dark ocean and developed its own diverse ecosystem. A sudden idea struck me. I thought of recording these events, so I hurried to find a black notebook. I opened the first page of the creation log and wrote, "The Great Dark Era." Heaven and earth suddenly changed. The sun set and the moon rose high. The world fell into a long darkness of 5,000 years. 99% of sea life went extinct. Only the cerulean silver grass survived. In this dark ocean, the cerulean silver grass became the ruler of this era. I looked at the pond that had become an ocean of life and waited quietly. Next up were the sea animals. What kind of sea creatures would my insect spores evolve into? I didn't sleep all night, waiting until dawn. But as the 7th day began, the various cerulean silver grasses that had flourished at night quickly withered. Accustomed to the dim moonlight, they seemed to be scorched as they sank to the bottom of the sea. In an instant, the cerulean silver grass began a mass extinction. By the afternoon, another patch of cerulean blue slowly revived from the withered, dead clumps. It was a 5-pointed, star-shaped cerulean silver grass. It had embraced its own mutation and successfully escaped this great extinction. To adapt to the bright sunlight, it began to reproduce, generation after generation. In just a few minutes, this type of cerulean silver grass died and was reborn countless times. Gradually changing from cerulean, it finally became a field of dark blue, 5-pointed star algae. I was utterly amazed and named this species violet sun grass. I opened the second page of the black notebook and wrote, "The Luminous Era." Heaven and earth changed again. The moon set, and the sun shone. The scorching sun hung in the sky for 5,000 years. The cerulean silver grass, ruler of the Great Dark Era, went extinct on a massive scale, while the weaker violet sun grass rose to prominence. It became the protagonist of the era, dominating this age. And then, the night of the seventh day arrived. The violet sun grass lived peacefully in the ocean, now able to withstand the 5,000-year cycle of day and night. Meanwhile, the photosynthesis of the vast number of aquatic plants greatly increased the oxygen content in the seawater, and the conditions for the birth of sea animals were met. Soon, the single-celled organisms in the ocean began to evolve. The first to appear were a group of black, hard-shelled, beetle-like creatures. And from then on, sea animals entered the stage of evolutionary history. The moment I saw animals appear, I finally let out a smile of relief. Carrying my exhausted body from staying up all day and night, I went back to my room and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was the 8th day of the Sandbox world's creation. I found that some sea animals, dissatisfied with the fierce competition in the ocean, had evolved into amphibians, living on the barren shores. So I quickly recorded on the page after the Luminous Era, the Third Era, the New Life Era. Various types of animals emerged in massive numbers. The first generation of sea animals appeared, an era of flourishing species. The hard-shelled invertebrates temporarily ruled the seas, becoming the rulers of the era, but their reign did not last long. Vertebrates were born and defeated them with their advantage in agility. They became the rulers of the New Life Era and crawled out of the ocean to rule for a long time to come. After writing all this, I quietly closed the black notebook. Although the spores were about to evolve into land creatures, there was no telling how long it would take for them to evolve into intelligent life. Suddenly, an idea struck me. I thought of dripping my own blood in. But this idea was too bold. To be cautious, I decided to experiment with other genes first. I went to the zoo, claiming to be doing university research, and bought a blood sample from a chimpanzee. When I returned to the orchard, the entire 100 mu miniature simulated area had already become a small ecological world. The mountains and rivers were lush with greenery. The plains were covered with strange-looking trees. There were also animals swimming in the rivers. I walked into this vast 100 mu experimental plot. I finally chose a beetle-like creature and placed them in a new experimental plot. That was only 1 square meter. After injecting the chimpanzee blood, I accelerated time. Those who couldn't withstand the blood rejection reaction all died. In just 2 days, tens of millions of beetles died. I selected from the survivors, choosing the small group with the most successful blood fusion, and named them the ape insects. The ape insects' appearance was very similar to humans, but the difference was that they had a round, black carapace on their backs. The black jade ape insects. It took a full 2 days, which in this orchard's simulated area is equivalent to 20,000 years. Some powerful creatures had appeared. Towering trees pierced the sky. Many giant animals were born. This meant the simulated area had entered a terrifying era similar to the Jurassic period. Among all the animals, the largest walking creature with a black disc on its head had reached the size limit I set, which was the size of a cat. I took the ape insect tribe I had experimented on and placed them in the southern part of the simulated area, in a large valley surrounded by green trees. I wanted to see how the ape insects would survive in such an era. At the same time, I adjusted the time flow rate in the simulated area to 100 years per day. Early the next morning, I rushed straight to the simulated area to observe that group of ape insects. To my surprise, they had already started to form a simple tribal social structure and had even developed a simple language and culture. But what worried me was that they were just too weak. Their ancient genes from 20,000 years ago couldn't compete with the giant beasts of 20,000 years later. I wouldn't just stand by and let the ape insects I had painstakingly cultivated go extinct. Therefore, I decided to give them the spark of civilization. I ordered a miniature guest greeting pine bonsai online and had a sword made that was only slightly thicker than the tip of a needle. It was an exquisitely crafted alloy giant sword. By the time these 2 items arrived, a day had passed, which for the ape insects was 150 years. By this time, the ape insect tribe in the simulated area had dwindled in number, until they were on the brink of extinction. But I was actually a little pleased by this. Surviving in this era for 150 years without going extinct showed they had great potential. I adjusted the time flow rate to 1:1 and walked into the simulated area. The ape insect tribe was now in ruins. Corpses were scattered everywhere. "Run, we can't hide here anymore. The dark claws are here," a few male ape insects roared in low voices, telling the women and children behind them to retreat, while they themselves swung clubs made from the horns of some unknown giant beast and charged towards the few pitch-black beasts in front of them. The beasts called Dark Claws. "We have to survive." The female and young ape insects fled, their faces filled with despair. It seemed they were used to this kind of escape. As for the few male ape insects who had charged out earlier, they had now become food for the dark claws. Blood splattered everywhere. Seeing this scene from a distance, I couldn't bear to watch. The primitive tribe fell tragically, and as I strode forward, the fleeing ape insects only felt the earth tremble. In the ancient forest filled with a savage aura, countless wild animals were startled into flight. Many creatures fled for their lives. Mountains and rivers were trampled flat. Some powerful creatures didn't even have time to react, before being crushed to death by a foot that fell from the sky. I quickly caught up with the fleeing ape insect soldiers. The few dark claws that were tearing at the ape insects' bodies earlier were also crushed to death by me. God, what is that? How can there be such a huge creature? It's 10,000 times bigger than the largest 100-meter giant beast, Fenba. It killed the terrifying dark claws with a single stomp. The ape insects turned back to look, only to see an immense creature towering into the sky, like an ancient giant walking through the heavens and clouds. They screamed and immediately collapsed to the ground. I understood the language of these ape insects, but I paid no mind to their shock. After all, to them, I was like the creator. Run, run, there's no escape, we're only as big as one of its hairs. Countless fleeing ape insects collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. But while everyone was screaming in terror, a young ape insect stubbornly looked up at the sky and shouted at me. This giant beast must be here to eat us too. You killed my father and mother. You killed Desong. Why are we so weak? I was a little surprised by the courage of this young ape insect, so an idea came to me. Then I choose you. I gently extended my hand and held this ape insect in my palm. The young ape insect's mind went completely blank. The giant creature's palm was like a boundless continent, and he was merely the size of a tiny line on that palm. He looked up again. The giant's two eyes were like two blazing suns in the sky. Because I had concealed my face from the beings in this simulated world, all they could see was a blurry face that glowed with a radiant light. I held this tiny ape insect with one hand. My eyes were calm. Gilgamesh, do you wish to change all of this? The little ape insect trembled. He screamed loudly in my palm. You can speak? In this world, there's actually an intelligent, 10,000 jong giant? Why do you call me Gilgamesh? I held him up in my palm, bringing him to eye level, and replied calmly, a name is a sign of intelligence. Gilgamesh stood in my palm, suddenly excited. We can communicate. That means we are both intelligent beings. Why don't you help us? You're so strong, so immense. The ape insects had no idea what I was. They just thought I was an intelligent life form similar to the giant beasts. I had no intention of explaining. I held Gilgamesh in my palm and strode across the mountains and rivers. Countless trees and creatures were trampled flat. I let the weak ape insect in my palm look down. A thunderous voice echoed through the sky. All species on this earth are equal. You are just like all the plants and animals. Why should I help only you? Just because you have intelligence? Gilgamesh was speechless. Suddenly, he started shouting in despair. Then why did you come to us? No one can save you. And don't ever hope for anyone to save you. You can only save yourselves. But I can give you the path of civilization, for you to save yourselves. Gilgamesh stood in my palm, looking down in shock. This was the first time he had looked down from the perspective of the clouds, to gaze upon this vast land. The mountains and rivers shrank beneath his eyes. Countless wild beasts fled and roared under the giant's feet, forming a vast and utterly shocking picture. What a magnificent and beautiful view from on high. What a terrifying and desirable great power. He spoke in a trembling voice. Civilization. What is that? I had never thought I would have to explain what civilization is to a newly born species. So after some thought, I gave my own answer. Civilization is a spark of fire. It is knowledge, and it is also order. Furthermore, it is the power used by intelligent beings to protect themselves. Upon hearing the word, power, Gilgamesh seemed a little dazed. I let him sit on my shoulder and walked back to the Great Valley. Then I took the miniature guest greeting pine bonsai I ordered online from my backpack and planted it in the ground. This was just a 60-centimeter tall guest greeting pine, but for this miniature land, it was an endless, sacred tree that towered into the sky. Looking up, clouds and mist swirled around it. The top of the giant tree was lost from sight. If you desire the power of civilization, then show your courage. Climb this sacred tree. This is my test for you. Test of wisdom and courage. With that, I placed the specially made metal giant sword and a matchstick dipped in kerosene on the treetop. On second thought, I went to the treetop again and placed a capsule containing termite genes. This was a byproduct of the previous experiment. When I created the ape insect species, a thunderous voice echoed through the sky again. These are the three treasures of civilization. The first is the Sword of Judgment. It is a weapon to protect civilization, unlike the barbarians all over the land. A creature that can borrow the power of tools can be called an intelligent species. The second is the torch, burning with a scorching flame. It is the bridge that supports civilization. To control the spark of fire is the enlightenment of civilization. The third is the blood of power. Only the bravest warrior in the world can drink it. If you can withstand the purification of the blood of power, you will gain unparalleled strength. But if you cannot endure it, you will die. If you wish to change the fate of your species, then climb the sacred tree before the torch burns out, and obtain the 3 treasures of civilization. With that, I gently placed the little ape insect on the ground, then amidst its shock, I took long strides, trampling over mountains, and left. The moment I walked out of the orchard, I accelerated the sandbox's flow rate 100-fold. This way, the match that could only burn for a few seconds would, for the creatures in the sandbox, burn for several days. Then I used a telescope and could clearly see the scene under the sacred tree. Little Gilgamesh, with a determined look, was climbing the sacred tree. In my eyes, this little insect's posture as it climbed the tree was so fast it left after images. In just a few seconds, he fell countless times, then tried to climb again. After more than 10 seconds, he finally successfully climbed to the top of the sacred tree. But in reality, for Gilgamesh in the sandbox, he couldn't remember how long he had been climbing or how many times he had failed. At the top of the sacred tree, standing on the lush canopy, Gilgamesh held the sword high, as if saying something. Then he quickly turned into a blurry shadow and climbed down the sacred tree. I was a bit curious, so I used the power of creation to replay the image from the top of the sacred tree just now. I saw Gilgamesh conquer the sacred tree. He held the sword of judgment high and swung it over his head. He looked down at the scene of all living things under the sacred tree. The bone armor on his back was black and glossy. His resolute face was full of confidence, and also filled with wisdom. In the future, we will be like that wisdom beast. Everyone in the tribe will have great divine power. Power that makes countless giant beasts flee. I will lead my species to the very top, and let the seeds of civilization scatter across the land. On the top of the primeval sacred tree. This moment was eternally recorded. Millions of years later, it once existed on this land and flourished to the extreme. But it was only glorious for a moment. The most ancient Yanli dynasty, people discovered from archaeology. The Epic of Yanli, written by their ancestors for the great king. This most ancient document, in the Genesis, the ancient history of Yanli recorded, a 10,000 jong tall wisdom beast. The sacred face came trampling mountains and shattering the earth. It bestowed a sacred tree and set a test of wisdom. It gave the 3 treasures of civilization to the young hero King Gilgamesh. When I woke up the next morning, the simulated world in the orchard had already passed 100 years. For the ape insects, with an average lifespan of 40 to 50 years. 2 generations had passed. I felt a bit of anticipation. After 2 generations, that young ape insect Gilgamesh from back then. Had he died of old age? The answer was no. That young ape insect Gilgamesh from back then, had he died of old age? The answer was no. He greatly surprised me. In the first 10 years after I left, Gilgamesh continued to lead the ape insects in their flight. He was amazed that such a wonderful thing existed in the world. Fire could cook food, it could drive away giant beasts at night and provide warmth on cold nights. No wonder the wisdom beast said that fire represented the origin of civilization. And that sword of judgment, in this vast primeval forest, was an invincible weapon. Gilgamesh used this sharp weapon to kill countless beasts, allowing his tribe to finally catch a breath. They finally had the power to resist. In the second 10 years, Gilgamesh passed from youth into his 30s. He grew tall and majestic, becoming the strongest hunter of the ape insect tribe. He was called a hero king by the tribe. He also used fire to clear the land, to enrich the soil, and began simple farming. He was arrogant, conceited, and savage. He was the sole authority. The wisdom beast had placed the 3 treasures of civilization in his hands. He knew clearly that civilization was the inheritance of knowledge and history. So he boldly created pictographic script to record the history of his species. He created a new language. He believed he was the first wise man to pioneer the world of civilization. So he recorded his own history of creating civilization in a book, and praised it with an epic, arrogantly naming it Genesis. He ruled with savagery and tyranny, but he was extremely charismatic. He had 131 wives in the tribe, who bore him heirs. These heirs were all strong and powerful, inheriting his sturdiness and wisdom. But the ape insect species had an average lifespan of only 30 to 40 years. This time, Gilgamesh was in his 30s. The hero who once wielded the sword of judgment, the brave and heroic hero king, had reached the end of his life. Inside a wooden treehouse, the fire in the fireplace was burning brightly. Gilgamesh sat quietly on a giant chair woven from the fur of a dark claw. He looked at the flames and muttered to himself, "That is the flame of civilization the great wisdom beast gave me. It is so beautiful and dazzling, like dancing crimson petals. Gilgamesh's tall and sturdy body had now grown old. He turned to look at the giant beast skulls hanging on the wall. These are the bones of all kinds of giant beasts on this land. My life has been glorious enough, dazzling enough, and I have fulfilled the dream of my youth. I am content. The next tribal leader was said to be his son, Artoria, whose abilities were no less than his own. He could lead the species to continue to prosper. Gilgamesh could clearly feel that his own life was slowly coming to an end. Death is something no living being can escape. He had almost accepted his fate. Then, he slowly took out the blood of power from that day. He sighed and said, HMPH, I have nothing more to worry about. Back then, the great wisdom beast said that only the bravest warrior in the world could drink this third treasure. Am I the bravest warrior in the world? Then let me give it a try. The hero in his old age, his cloudy eyes widened slightly. In a trance, he recalled his glorious life. Suddenly, tears streamed down. His cloudy eyes widened slightly. In a trance, he recalled his glorious life. Suddenly, tears streamed down. He slowly cut his arm and poured the blood of power onto the wound. Intense pain surged through him. Gilgamesh struggled and fell to the ground. This hero in his final years had been through countless battles, but he had never gasped in such severe pain before. In the end, he overcame death. He slowly stood up. His long hair had lost its original color. It had turned a silver white. His handsome face was as youthful as a god's. This power is inside the treehouse. The strong, white-haired young man muttered to himself. The blood of power. What a magnificent power this is. At this moment, Gilgamesh could clearly feel a continuous stream of power flowing from his body. Meanwhile, in the tribal village, Artoria, Gilgamesh's son, was standing on a high place, holding the sword of rupture high, announcing his succession to the leadership. Artoria was both wise and capable, possessing both ability and virtue. Compared to his cruel and arrogant father, he seemed like a more benevolent and worthy leader. Gilgamesh knew this well, so in his old age, he was willing to abdicate. But now, everything was different. Artoria was very kind-hearted. He was loved by the people and greatly respected his father. He never intended to usurp his father's position. But even so, Gilgamesh would not allow any hidden dangers to exist. I have returned. The leadership is still mine. On that day, fresh blood splattered. Agonizing screams echoed throughout the Yanli tribe. Hero King Gilgamesh devoured his own son to reclaim the throne and live his second life. In the first 10 years of Gilgamesh's second life, he led his people to build houses with stone. The ape insect species officially entered the Stone Age of resisting giant beasts. Gilgamesh, who had not used the blood of power, had gained the genes of a termite, allowing him to easily uproot 100-year-old giant trees. His immense strength could even move mountains. He led his people to resist the giant beasts. After 13 long years of fighting, he chose to challenge the most terrifying existence on this land. The 100-meter giant beast named Fenba, known as the strongest in the world. Fenba was the ruling king of the giant beast era on this continent. In other words, it was the creature that had evolved to the largest size in my simulated world at that time. Gilgamesh fought Fenba for 3 days and 3 nights. The earth split apart, valleys collapsed, countless giant beasts in the forest fled for their lives. On that day, Gilgamesh was covered in blood, holding the sword of rupture in his hand. With his other hand, he dragged the body of the 100-meter giant beast Fenba back. His single arm's strength could drag Fenba's body, which was as large as a towering mountain. Countless people of the tribe were proud. They were shocked to the extreme and composed an epic poem for him to sing of his power. This was the strongest hero king in history. I will build a country. When he returned, he looked at the people of the Stone Age tribe and said so. Instantly, the whole tribe rejoiced. People cried with joy. They knew that, under the leadership of this great hero king, the days of suffering were over. They no longer had to fear the cruelty of the giant beasts. A new era of civilization had begun. History is written by the victors. Gilgamesh did not record the cruelty of devouring his son, but instead recorded his own prowess in the Genesis, in the historical records of the Yanli dynasty. But instead recorded his own prowess in the Genesis, in the historical records of the Yanli dynasty. Gilgamesh drank the blood of power and slew the legendary giant beast Fenba. He moved giant rocks to build a wall, creating the first city-state in history, named Unyielding Rock City. Time passed. Gilgamesh, invincible across the land, began to devote himself to developing civilization. He actively governed the country. Because of me, he was extremely charming, but at the same time cruel and arrogant. He created currency, developed language. He built cities, but cruelly divided the people into different classes. He exhausted the people's money and labor, sending many warriors to explore the ends of the earth. He was the people's great hero king, but also a true tyrant. In the 87th year of the Yanli dynasty, Gilgamesh was 127 years old. The capital, unyielding rock city, had a terrifyingly high population of 10 million. Countless slaves were traded here. Even a beast-fighting arena was built. The nobles used this for entertainment. The tribespeople of the past had all died off. Centuries passed. The later generations no longer remembered the hardships and struggles of their ancestors and gradually became corrupt with comfort. However, the king of Yanli at that time was still majestic. In the dark great hall of unyielding rock city, a tall and majestic man stood quietly before a magnificent throne of white bone. By his side was the legendary sword of rupture that never left him. The great king of Yanli, the ruler of the city-state, Gilgamesh. Your Majesty, we have explored the entire land. The Grand Minister of the palace, Star Envoy Han Ming, bowed slightly and recounted what he had seen over the years with fanaticism. We have explored the entire land. The Grand Minister of the palace, Star Envoy Han Ming, bowed slightly, recounting the stories of his travels over the years with fanaticism. What is our world like? Gilgamesh stared sharply at the minister before him, as if his gaze could penetrate the blue sky outside the palace. The heroes who set out to explore the world back then departed from all directions, taking decades. Countless casualties were suffered on the round trip. Today, the shape of the entire world was finally known. Han Ming gestured obsequiously and exaggeratedly. Our world has a round heaven and a square earth. The sky is a round dome, stretching as far as the eye can see. The ground is a perfect square. In the center is a vast ocean, surrounded by mountains and rivers. On this vast land, if one were to ride the fastest flying beast in a straight line, a round trip to the ends of the world would still take more than 20 years. Gilgamesh on the throne was silent for a moment, then said, "That's enough. You may leave." "Yes, Your Majesty." Han Ming got up to leave, then suddenly stopped. He turned back to look at their king with adoration. This great hero king led them out of the caves, established the tribe, from the agricultural era to the Stone Age, and then into the city-state era. He slew Fenba, the most terrifying giant beast king, and ushered in era after era of civilization. More than 30 years ago, Han Ming was just a young warrior. He was summoned to the palace by His Majesty and ordered to draw a geographical map of the city-state. Until 30 years later, when he returned to the capital of heroes to complete his mission. He was no longer a young man, but a trembling old man. His eyes were cloudy, but he was a trembling old man. His eyes were cloudy, he wouldn't live much longer. But His Majesty was still the same as before, with not a single trace of the passing years. What a great king this is. Han Ming trembled. His eyes were filled with fanaticism. For over 100 years, His Majesty had not shown his power again. How strong his true power had become was unknown. Perhaps in the future, this immortal and long-lived king will lead the Yanli people into the next era of civilization. Our world, a round heaven and a square earth. After there was no one left in the palace, Gilgamesh recalled these words and let out a long sigh. He gently stroked the giant sword by his side, as if it were a lover who had accompanied him through endless time. I have mastered the power of the torch. I have thoroughly understood the blood of power. But this sword of rupture, I have searched the entire world, and still haven't found how it was made. Gilgamesh muttered, stroking the sword's body in awe. What material is this made of? Is it the bone of some giant beast, or the craft of some civilization? Unfortunately, this world is not a real world after all. I didn't put any minerals in the sandbox, so the civilization in the sandbox can only remain in the Stone Age forever. In their understanding of the world, the word metal will never exist. For this world, this shining thing, this indestructible material, is mysterious, powerful, and unique. They searched to the ends of the earth, but still couldn't find the great wisdom beast from back then. This indestructible material is mysterious, powerful, and unique. They searched to the ends of the earth, but still couldn't find the great wisdom beast from back then. Where on earth does it lie? The civilization that the wisdom beast possesses is truly unfathomable. This sword Aya that was given to me, although it is a priceless treasure, this sacred sword that pioneered all of civilization, is also like a warning to me that the power called civilization, I have only possessed a fraction of it. The rest is still a mystery, just like the secret of how this sword was made. It terrifies me. The sword Aya is like a sword hanging over my head, slowly rising and ready to fall at any moment, to take my life. The power of civilization. How I yearn for it. Gilgamesh sat on his throne, like a lion that had been dormant for a long time. His eyes slowly gazed into the distance. In a trance, he recalled the distant past of over 100 years ago. That immense and powerful figure, the giant that pierced the sky. His whole body shone with a brilliant light, born with sacredness. His vast palm held his younger self, as he looked down upon the mountains and rivers of the world. The one who gave him the 3 treasures of civilization. It was a scene he would never forget in his life. Everything was still clear in his memory, as if it had just happened yesterday. It's a pity that my life is about to end again. The blood of power no longer works on me. I desire a 3rd life. Oh, great wisdom beast. I want to see you again. But unfortunately, at that time, I was happily eating and chatting with the girl next door. I didn't hear Gilgamesh's plea at all. And of course, even if I had heard it, I probably wouldn't have cared. A life that withers with time must burn out in its cycle. No one can be immortal forever. Gilgamesh has lived a life that even I envy, a life of utmost glory, watched by tens of thousands. What more is there to regret? But I underestimated Gilgamesh's desire for life. After having experienced death and rebirth, he feared death to his very core. This brave king longed for a 3rd life. In the 102nd year of the Yanli dynasty, Gilgamesh was 142 years old. The legendary king whose lifespan was 3 times that of an ordinary person. His face began to age visibly. He was shocked out of his wits. His rage shook the earth. He issued a royal decree to use the entire nation's power to search for the wisdom beast. And at the same time, gathered all the sorcerers and practitioners from all over the land to concoct elixirs and study dark arts. In an instant, within the vast primeval forest, a massive number of giant beasts were slaughtered. Every part of them was used in experiments. The once flourishing dark claw species faced a catastrophe that nearly drove them to extinction. History entered the famous era of the tyrannical city-state. 13 years later, a court dark wizard finally concocted an elixir of life and successfully extended Gilgamesh's life. But soon his body developed a resistance. After several doses, it no longer had any effect. Gilgamesh began to wither irreversibly. Death is something no living being can escape. Not even the greatest of heroes is an exception. In the 145th year of the Yanli dynasty, more than 30 years had passed. Gilgamesh felt that his life was rapidly fading. This majestic old man sat motionless on his throne. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "My life is coming to an end, even though I don't want to die at all." After sitting quietly for 3 days, he finally opened his weary eyes. He chose to hide from time and began to select candidates for the next king. In an instant, the dynasty was in an uproar. The great king was about to die. The long-lived and immortal hero King Gilgamesh was nearing the end of his life. For a moment, no one dared to respond. The last time Gilgamesh grew old, he let his most trusted son, Artoria, become the next leader. But after his 2nd life, he killed him with his own hands. Everyone was afraid of becoming the next Artoria. However, Gilgamesh was indeed the wisest king. He directly ordered that candidates for the throne would receive the blood of power, which would give them power equal to mine. Don't be afraid of me, and they would be given the right to lead an army. And the right to build a 2nd capital outside. Give them the blood of power. And allow them to build a city. When the news spread, the whole kingdom was shocked. Countless merchants, slaves, commoners, nobles, and craftsmen flocked to the front of the royal palace. In the end, countless people, even after passing the tests, died from the rejection of the blood of power. Only the forest warrior Likitu and the barbarian general of the grasslands, Landil, these 2 received the blood of power and survived. They each established their own city-states. The 2 next kings who possessed the blood of power had appeared. They were about to inherit the throne, to succeed the dying Gilgamesh and lead the Yanli civilization into the next era. Civilization began in Gilgamesh's hands, but it could not end in his hands. In the 175th year of the Yanli dynasty, 3 kings stood side by side, ruling the world together. The Yanli city-state entered an unprecedented era of prosperity. Suddenly, Gilgamesh felt death's complete arrival. He began his final struggle. He summoned craftsmen to build a temple more magnificent than the Lishi Palace. A more exquisite temple of the wisdom beast. Inside the huge stone temple stood a towering statue of the giant beast god. The immense giant beast god in the brilliant light, one hand holding the young hero King Gilgamesh, its faint blue eyes looking down upon the entire land. Its whole body exuded an astonishing divinity. That day, Gilgamesh led the ministers and led the millions of citizens of the entire kingdom to worship the wisdom beast, hoping that the great Lord of Wisdom would feel his sincerity. If only he could see the wisdom beast again before he died. Gilgamesh's old face was suddenly streaked with tears. It has been over 100 years. Gilgamesh, on the verge of death, led all the court officials to offer sacrifices at the temple, pleading for the 2nd time to see the wisdom beast again. "Oh, great wisdom beast, Gilgamesh wishes to see you again." This hero king's fervent wish was just to see again the one who had given him the 3 famous treasures back then. The mysterious wisdom beast, because the commotion was too great. I, who was strolling with the girl next door, received a message from the creator's brain. I was a little moved, but I decided to go and see this old friend. And it's about time I put a stop to the ape insect species. I never thought that, after accelerating time in the sandbox for just a few days, they would destroy countless ecosystems in the sandbox and cause many species to go extinct. And all of this was for Gilgamesh's grand dream of immortality. I adjusted the time in the sandbox back to normal, then stepped into the sandbox world. At this moment, for the creatures in the sandbox, the ground was shaking slightly. The mountains, rivers, land, and oceans seemed to be trembling. Trees were trampled, giant footprints were left in the valleys. In the dense forest, countless wild animals fled for their lives. And then, the entire flaming rock capital began to tremble slightly. What's happening? Is the city going to collapse? At that moment, Gilgamesh was leading the officials in worshipping the stone statue of wisdom. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something. The great hero king's aged face, for the first time, showed a childlike joy. 200 years away, the great lord of wisdom I saw in my youth. The giant wisdom beast who bestowed upon me the 3 treasures of civilization. You have finally returned. I gazed at the magnificent flaming rock capital, capable of housing tens of millions, feeling a slight astonishment. Even though in my eyes, it was merely the size of a basketball court. It was still built by the lowly ape insect species, which was truly grand and spectacular. I looked down at the altar and the exquisite temple in the city, beneath the towering stone statue. The old hero king, clad in pure white, was looking up, holding the sword Aya. Clear tears streamed down his cheeks as he looked at me. I looked down at the white-haired old man with tear-streaked face. Feeling a bit moved, the young ape insect I once held in my palm, the passionate youth who stood on the giant tree, wielding the sword Aya and roaring at the sky, had now entered the twilight of his life, heading towards the end of time. But the ambitious posture of that young man seemed like it just happened yesterday. Gilgamesh, how have you been all these years? I spoke softly, my voice echoing through the vast clouds, down into the prosperous flaming rock capital below. Gilgamesh, carrying the sacred sword, trembled. I suppose I've been well. His throat was dry and hoarse as he looked up at the sky. This giant, towering to the heavens, even though it wasn't the first time he had seen it. He was still impressed by this magnificent sight. The 10,000-foot giant pierced directly into the sky. Its body seemed to support all of heaven and earth, its brilliant light obscuring its face. From the clouds, a faint, pure, sacred white light shone, making its powerful face invisible. The giant looked down upon the entire flaming rock city, noble, majestic, and sacred. No words in the world could describe that astonishing beauty. God truly exists. Over 10 million citizens throughout the city, whether merchants in luxurious animal hides or slaves in ragged clothes. All commoners and craftsmen put down their work and walked out of their homes. Standing on the streets, gazing up at the colossal giant piercing the sky. This is the legendary wisdom beast who gave us civilization. I can't believe it's truly a giant 10,000 feet tall. What a magnificent being it is, comparable to the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. Everyone was in shock, their minds blank. Desire, awe, astonishment, countless complex emotions mingled together, finally transforming into unparalleled reverence. Gilgamesh looked at the equally stunned faces of the surrounding court officials and chuckled helplessly. He recalled the first time he saw the wisdom beast, feeling the same astonishment. After a moment of silence, Gilgamesh looked up, his eyes filled with longing. Wisdom beast, the legacy of civilization you bestowed upon me over 100 years ago. Gilgamesh looked up, his eyes filled with longing. Wisdom beast, the legacy of civilization you bestowed upon me over 100 years ago. I have succeeded. Above the sky, 10,000 meters high. I, a colossal giant spanning time, my voice piercing through the clouds. To the Leishi city below, including your great honor, will be inscribed in the epic of creation that you commanded to be written. You will be the greatest first-generation hero king in the history of Yanli civilization. Gilgamesh, future generations will sing hymns of praise for you. 1,000 years of glory after death will remain in the epics passed down through generations. That's not what I want. Gilgamesh suddenly shouted emotionally. Then what do you want? I want eternal life, just like you. Gilgamesh looked up at the towering giant, with intense longing. I'm willing to abandon everything, sacrifice everything. Please grant me the elixir of immortality. Upon hearing this, I fell silent. This king, at this very moment, virtually possessed everything on earth: honor, power, and wealth. Even the whole world was his, yet he was still not satisfied. Immortality, I too desire it. I am currently afflicted with an incurable disease, close to death at any moment. I envy Gilgamesh's glorious life so much. That epic-like song of life. Gilgamesh, you are too greedy. The miraculous item that grants immortality. I do not possess it. I looked at this fading king with an indifferent gaze. Birth, old age, sickness, and death are natural laws for all living beings. I cannot change them. At the end of life, everyone desires to struggle to live on. Status and position are nullified in an instant, transcending countless norms of civilization. Whether emperor or ant, transcending countless norms of civilization. Whether emperor or ant, ultimately cannot escape turning into ashes and bones. I looked deeply at Gilgamesh, then down at the kingdom below with a sigh. Impossible. Gilgamesh squeezed a hoarse voice from his throat. He looked at the sacred face enveloped by clouds in the sky. No, you're deceiving me. You can definitely do it. He looked at me with eyes full of insane expectation. A body as vast as mountains, and as sturdy as rocky peaks. Over 200 years had passed, and even he, who had drunk the blood of power, had aged. But time had left no trace on this great giant. Time for him was like yesterday. In his eyes, the wisdom beast was an immortal being. What a powerful force, and what a long and yearned for lifespan this was. Gilgamesh's lips trembled, then he suddenly looked up and roared in anger. So, you answered my call to witness my death, then? To see a lowly, pathetic life, dying tremblingly of old age? Gilgamesh, I have come to see you off for the last time. I do not have the power to extend your life, and I have come to deliver the second mission of civilization with a warning. I sighed and continued, stop the slaughter. Your civilization is cruel and destructive, harming all surrounding living beings. Forests are destroyed, giant beasts hunted, and the continent trampled by you. True civilization is not violence or savagery. I command you to cease the slaughter. Cease the slaughter. Although Gilgamesh was old, he still looked strong. He tried to stand with his trembling body, his eyes burning with fire. The flames intensified. This white-haired old man took a quick step forward. His desire surged even more. This white-haired old man stepped forward firmly. My slaughter will never stop, and my footsteps cannot be halted either. Don't you know? All these years, this sword of separation that you gave me. It has always hung over my head. It gave me immense power. But it also brought me incomparable terror. And today, I will pull out this hanging sword with my own hands. Where is the archivist? The archivist in charge of compiling the Book of Genesis stepped forward at the sound. Record the history of our civilization at this moment. I will speak, and you shall write. On the red table, the scribe recording on stone tablets silently picked up a quill pen and unrolled a gray parchment scroll. Please speak, Your Majesty. The history of humanity's struggle against nature is a history of courage and hymns of praise. The original intention behind compiling the Book of Genesis was to leave history for future generations. Now, let history record my courage at this moment, so that future generations may witness the bravery of their ancestors who fought against nature. Gilgamesh panted heavily. His aging body, carrying the sword of separation, chuckled lowly, then roared. In the 175th year of the Fiery Emperor dynasty, after slaying Manhwa, the strongest legendary giant beast in history, hero King Gilgamesh, who had reigned for over 100 years, acted again, using the entire nation's power to lure forth the sublime wisdom beast. Hoping to wield his sword to slay the wisdom beast, I silently observed all of this. My heart was full of confusion and surprise. Last time, he killed his son. I silently observed all of this, my heart full of confusion and surprise. Last time, he killed his son, but this time, he intended to kill a god. But I quickly regained my composure. Gilgamesh's actions seemed to defy heaven and earth, but in reality, it was fitting. The first time he brushed with death. After this brave king survived, he killed his dearest son with his own hands. The second time he brushed with death, he chose to wield his sword against me. The one who had given him the 3 treasures of civilization. Perhaps I should have anticipated it from the beginning, when I chose a brave young ape from among the trembling apes. The child who dared to shout questions at the towering giant, what would that choice mean? Throughout his life, there was never fear in his heart. Now, for him to turn his sword towards me is only natural. Because that is his true nature. I said with an indifferent expression. Gilgamesh, I will warn you one last time. Stop your adventures. This is savagery, not civilization. The actions you are about to take will have a very heavy price. No price is heavier than death. Gilgamesh slowly opened his bloodshot eyes, as if he had returned to his youth again, revealing the long-lost madness and fiery passion. Just like when I risked my life to slay Fenba, today I will slay the wisdom beast. To seize its civilization and its power. To achieve true immortality, I will lead my people to challenge God. Gilgamesh roared madly. This was the first clash between civilization and civilization. One civilization of wisdom, challenging the unique wisdom beast. Even though you once guided our civilization, now you hinder our progress. He raised his long sword above his head, the strong wind wildly sweeping his disheveled silver hair. Madly and arrogantly, and at that very moment, a distant bell echoed throughout the entire capital. The entire flaming capital instantly boiled over. Hundreds of thousands of troops poured out, forming a dense and orderly formation. I looked at this scene and sighed. It turned out that over 10 years ago, Gilgamesh was already preparing to act against the wisdom beast. Today was merely a ploy to lure me out. If I didn't accept his terms, he would bring people to kill me. So brave and cunning. From this perspective, he was truly a great tyrant. At the same time, in the distant plains giant city, the barbarian general of the grasslands, Landel, stood calmly in front of the palace. Despite the great distance, he could still see the towering giant piercing the sky. What a perfect and magnificent life this was. Besides astonishment, Landel's eyes narrowed. It's time to act, if not to find helpers. How could His Majesty Gilgamesh, with his tyrannical and savage nature, bestow the precious blood of power on others? He did everything for this moment from the very beginning. Landel quickly drew his long sword, revealing the valiant spirit of the grassland people, and shouted loudly, "To battle! History will remember this great moment. Yanli Dynasty, 175th year. The Yanli people will slay the wisdom beast, and return with the blood of immortality." And on the sacred tree near the capital, this ancient tree, once towering to the heavens, had been used to test the three treasures of civilization. But now, a flourishing forest giant city stood on the top of the sacred tree. Forest hero, Likitu, held a wooden staff in his hand, silently gazing at the terrifying giant piercing the sky in the distance. Behind him, several disciples stood quietly. "Master, it's time to set off. Since we made a promise to the king, we should keep it." Someone whispered a reminder. "No, we, the forest giant city of Likitu, choose to do nothing." Likitu sighed, even looking at the capital from a distance. The terrifying power of that giant still pressed down on his heart, making it hard to breathe. "Master, are you afraid?" A loyal disciple couldn't help but ask. The three strongest kings of the three Yanli capitals are joining forces. Even the legendary wisdom beast might not be invincible. "I am not afraid. I do not fear death, but I fear abandoning what is more important than life. My civilization and wisdom prevent me from acting like a cruel beast. Slaying the wisdom beast who bestowed civilization and saved our species, without gratitude and morality, would be no different from a beast." The disciples fell silent. Their master, one of the three strongest leaders of the capitals, who received the blood of power, and was the great forest hero who survived. Yet, now he chose to defy the royal decree. "I defy the royal decree by not joining the battle. This crime is immense. Cut off my head, if His Majesty is victorious. Take my head to the royal court. I am guilty of defying the royal decree. Under His Majesty's tyrannical rule, I am guilty of defying the royal decree. Under His Majesty's tyrannical rule, I will die anyway. This is my own decision. Please, Your Majesty, do not punish the citizens. But if the wisdom beast is victorious, then take my head and offer it to the wisdom beast. To plead for the great giant's forgiveness, and to let the wisdom beast know that we still have true inheritors of civilization, not just barbarians. Pray that he will not completely exterminate our species. Please leave some way of survival. Master, kill me." Likitu stood calmly at the top of the sacred tree, his arms outstretched. Xuanze was silent for a moment. Then he made a firm decision. Blood splattered, he beheaded Likitu with his own hands. One of the strongest heroes of Yanli civilization, Forest King Likitu, offered no resistance before death. Xuanze looked at Likitu's serene and familiar face on the severed head. He wrapped it silently in animal hide. Suddenly, a pang of pain struck his heart. He vaguely felt that something extremely important in his life was slowly breaking apart. On the ground, countless arrows were fired simultaneously. This was Yanli's finest army, but to me, they were just a large swarm of ants. Although their arrows were sharp, their force was minimal. Swords and spears piercing my thick jeans hadn't even touched my skin yet. It was unbelievable that even the strongest army couldn't penetrate its clothing. I should have guessed that earlier. My elite army, which had conquered countless forests and giant beasts, was useless before the wisdom beast. As soon as the words fell, Gilgamesh immediately charged forward. It was useless. As soon as the words fell, Gilgamesh immediately charged forward, and in an instant was before my knee. I couldn't help but be amazed. So fast, an ant could be like a flea, unleashing such terrifying jumping power. Truly extraordinary. I swung my hand to swat, but the old hero king, wielding his sword, deftly dodged. Gilgamesh continued to move at high speed, nimbly dodging left and right, climbing up my jeans, but his expression was extremely grave. Is this the wisdom beast? Just the wind from its hand movements almost blew me away. Your Majesty, Lander is here to help. The barbarian general of the grasslands, Landel, also arrived. With just a light leap, he jumped 7 or 8 meters high, climbing onto my pants leg. I reached out to grab Landel. When facing a palm as enormous as a mountain, This king of the grasslands was equally agile. He had fought countless battles against giant beasts for years, possessing extremely strong combat skills, worthy of being the king of the grasslands. You two are not bad, but the test ends here. With that, I extended my palm and struck Landel at high speed. Landel's face instantly changed. He didn't have enough time to react. His body was immediately sent flying. The next second, I quickly slammed my palm out again, striking Gilgamesh with immense destructive power. Damn it, Gilgamesh was greatly shocked, only able to react in a split second. Wielding his astonishing sword to block in front of him, the palm struck the sword, and his body was sent flying. Falling rapidly, with just one move, he was defeated. I could only scratch its skin. Falling rapidly, with just one move, he was defeated. I could only scratch its skin. Gilgamesh, falling to the ground, laughed bitterly and spat out a large amount of blood. I looked at this great man with complex emotions. Even though he was defeated, from beginning to end, he never showed fear, even knowing that the strength of both sides was as far apart as heaven and earth. Gilgamesh, this complex and powerful man, possessed an extremely unique charm, and believed only in himself. He was also arrogant and haughty. Now, this great hero was about to pass away, making me feel some pity and regret, but the end of his lifespan was truly something I could not change. At the same time, Landel also spat out a large mouthful of blood. His chest heaved violently. He looked at the giant in the sky. In his eyes, there was no fear either. He had been prepared to accept death from the start. The warriors of Yanli never feared death. He merely laughed bitterly. So the difference was truly this vast? What exactly were we fighting against? Do you regret it now? I sighed softly, bathed in golden light, my massive body, towering to the heavens, like a giant standing since ancient times. Mysterious and awe-inspiring. Do you regret it? No, this is just a choice. Gilgamesh spat out a large mouthful of blood, and said no more. At this moment, Yanli civilization declared its defeat, their challenge to the great giant before the wisdom beast had failed. They knew well what this meant. Doomsday was about to arrive. I turned to look at the defeated army. There was only the insane screaming of destruction and extinction. The ape insects cried incessantly, both terrified and laughing in despair. It was clear they were close to madness. I never thought I would have to hold the fate of so many lives and determine the rise and fall of a civilization, both terrified and laughing in despair. It was clear they were close to madness. I never thought I would have to hold the fate of so many lives and determine the rise and fall of a civilization. I looked down at the fading hero king and asked calmly, "Are we about to meet our end? Just as we destroyed countless giant beast species, will you destroy us? To avenge them?" I looked at him silently. His civilization was about to collapse, but at this moment, he showed no fear. I pondered for a moment, then replied, "Since you refuse to heed my warning, I will destroy you. You have destroyed the ecosystem of the entire world and caused many species to go extinct. I cannot allow you to multiply endlessly." Upon hearing this, Gilgamesh smiled in relief. "That time, you answered me what civilization was. Now, can you answer a few more questions for me, for the last time?" Our king is about to ask the wisdom beast questions. Everyone around held their breath and looked up at the colossal giant. The atmosphere was silent for several seconds. The giant also fell silent. Suddenly, an immensely profound voice resonated through the vast clouds, down to the shattered hero capital below. "Ask your questions." In an instant, the whole world seemed to fall silent. The blood-soaked ground suddenly became soundless. Countless defeated soldiers stopped their steps and turned to look up at the giant in the sky. "By what means will you destroy us?" "I will use water." After a moment of thought, calmly added, "I will use a great flood to wash away civilization completely, destroying all traces you have created." In an instant, the entire land fell silent. Everyone was speechless. "To wash away civilization completely, destroying all traces you have created." In an instant, the entire land fell silent. Everyone was speechless. This land is too defiled, filled with sinners. Therefore, the wisdom beast will unleash a great flood to cleanse the land of sinners. But no matter how powerful the wisdom beast is, how can it cause a flood that covers the whole world? This is no longer the power of a giant beast. This is. Everyone gasped for air, their faces pale with shock. At that moment, they couldn't find words to describe this legendary wisdom beast. Second question. This world is vast. Why are there no traces of you? Where do you truly come from? What kind of being is the wisdom beast? Why did you give us the flame of civilization? And why do you stop us from slaying other species? You said all lives are equal. Savage species, intelligent species, and plants are all equal. If so, then what is this land to you? I lowered my head slightly, looking at the desperate hero king before me. The colossal figure looked down at the entire burning rock city, his voice resounding across the land. This land is the world I created. You are all my subjects. Savage species, intelligent species, and plants, all species are my subjects. For this reason, you are all equal. The silent atmosphere was as if frozen. People on the ground gasped, their breaths slowly growing louder, turning into a collective heavy panting. Even Gilgamesh was instantly stunned into silence. His face was filled with disbelief. Suddenly he laughed. The smile slowly widened, and finally turned into a wild and arrogant laughter. How amusing, truly amusing. What exactly are we fighting against? It turns out the legendary wisdom beast was only a giant beast in our minds. He is not a true giant beast, but the mighty Lord who created all things. He is the creator who built this world. Such a being deserves to be called God. On this land, the tribal people never had a concept of God before, but now they did. I was once arrogant, even naming the history of civilization one created. Genesis, thinking myself the creator of the world of civilization. But in reality, the true creator is the wisdom beast. All living beings are his subjects. What immense power this is. And I actually dared to. Gilgamesh's voice suddenly stopped, followed by laughter that echoed to the heavens. The more he laughed, the crazier he became. But I remained silent in my heart. The colossal giant, towering to the sky, stood at the edge of the capital, silently watching the desperate hero king laugh. Normally, I am calm, so I tolerated his arrogance and madness before death. Last question. How many days did you take to create our world? Gilgamesh suddenly asked. This question really made me think. That time, to transform the orchard into a sandbox, I had to dig the earth. This question really made me think. At that time, to transform the orchard into a sandbox, I was the one who dug the earth and shaped the mountains. This square piece of land took a full week to complete. So I answered truthfully that I took 7 full days to create this land. 7 days. God created the world. Only 7 days. Gilgamesh was stunned. He knelt down, laughing loudly. Laughing till tears streamed down, laughing madly. In that instant, he suddenly heard something shatter within his heart. That was the sound of a broken heart. His pride and arrogance had been utterly crushed before his death. What sorrow is greater than a dead heart? 7 days. Amidst his laughter, his consciousness completely faded. In that trance, he recalled his youth, standing on a giant palm, and the first question he asked that giant. What is civilization? Civilization is a spark. It is knowledge, and it is order. Civilization is also the strongest power of wisdom used to protect oneself. Gilgamesh's laughter grew louder, echoing through the wind and hills, through rivers and forests. On this land, all the people looked up vaguely, as if hearing the tragic song of this Yanli king's twilight. Countless people shed tears and wept, singing an anonymous Yanli lament. A mournful folk song, the fall of a great king. Today, at the edge of the city of heroes, the great hero king of epic, Gilgamesh, reached the end of his life, becoming mere dust in history. I sighed, watching the departure of this hero king. I never intended to seize anything you desired. The questions you wanted to ask, I answered all truthfully. I truly do not have the power to make you immortal. Even I am close to death myself. So why torment yourself? The king is dead, our king, Gilgamesh, the strongest hero king in history. He raised his sword against the creator. He is dead, we have lost. Countless ape beasts screamed and fled madly. I looked down silently at everything. How far could these ape beasts flee? To the ends of the earth? Truly unbelievable. Biming, the archivist, stood on the towering wall of the city of heroes, watching the great hero king defeated and die. Upon learning the terrifying truth, cold sweat drenched his body. I must hurry. Before I die, record everything. I must leave the truth about this world for future generations. The archivist trembled all over, his arms soaked with sweat. He had just recorded Gilgamesh's heroic deed of challenging the wisdom beast. Then opened his journal with trembling hands, quickly turning to the next page to record a new chapter. Genesis, records of the Yanli kingdom. The wisdom beast is truly the creator. Gilgamesh, in his twilight years, was extremely arrogant, conceiving the grand plan of raising a sword against God, to use his blood as the power of immortality. Ultimately, he incurred the wrath of the gods. God saw that the humans on earth were wicked, and decided to destroy Yanli civilization, sending a world-destroying flood to annihilate all life. Heaven trembled, the earth wept. Amidst the fervent atmosphere in the capital, people were terrified. Fear and trembling erupted. God will strike down upon our arms, crushing our spines. The great flood will destroy our world, destroy our civilization. And at that very moment, a blond young man, holding a wrapped cloth, appeared. He came to my feet. He opened the cloth, revealing a head inside, and declared loudly, "Oh, Forest King Likitu, great and wise beast, I come to beg for forgiveness." I paused slightly. Of the 3 kings, only 2 came. The Forest King was still missing. Xuanze knelt and pleaded, prostrating himself on the ground. We, the Yanli people, are not all savages. Our master Likitu has proven this with his death. He defied the order but refused to draw his sword against the benefactor who gave us civilization. We are not all sinners. When God punishes, please leave a final path for the Yanli people to survive. Upon hearing the deeds of this forest king, I sighed. In truth, I never thought Gilgamesh would be so insane, and never intended to wipe them out. It's just that they were too arrogant and conceited. Such a crazy challenge and disrespect, such cruelty and savagery, ultimately had to pay for their actions. You shall take people and use the giant divine tree to build an ark. Bring the seeds of all species on earth, leaving at least one pair. The remaining space, bring the virtuous from Likitu's forest onto the ship. I will bring forth the world-destroying flood now. I turned my back and walked away. Around me, there were only trembling and joyful sounds. We were defeated, but it wasn't the end of our nation or species. A spark of hope still remained. Thank you for the Creator's mercy. It was all because of Forest King Likitu, who showed him our good intentions. We are not barbarians. We still have a way to survive. We are not barbarians. We still have a way to survive. Praise Likitu. Praise the great Forest King. Stone Tablet Scribe also wept with joy. He looked at the departing back of the giant, then dipped his brush. Recording in the Yanli Kingdom chapter of the Book of Genesis that the mercy of Forest King Likitu moved the god who was prepared to destroy the world, and left a way of survival for the Yanli people who had dared to defy God. God commanded Xuanze to build an ark to escape the world-destroying flood. Back in the garden, I tidied up a bit, then found something placed in the corner of the orchard. It was a high-pressure water gun that Su Qing, the girl next door, and I bought at the mall last time. I never thought I'd use it now. In the 10 minutes I prepared just the water gun. 120 days had passed in the sandbox. Many people became fast-moving shadows. They felled the remaining divine bonsai tree from that year and built a gigantic ark, bringing the seeds of all living species, the young of various giant beasts. The species of the entire world, all scaled down, were gathered inside this gigantic ark. Fortunately, the space wasn't too big, so they lived together. Time to clean up. I walked into the sandbox. Standing 10 meters away, I raised the high-pressure water gun. Spraying directly, a stream of pure white high-pressure water shot into the city-state civilization area in the orchard. Large trees toppled, the giant city crumbled in an instant. Countless wild animals fled the forest for their lives, trying to escape the surging white waves behind them, but were ultimately swallowed up. Heaven and earth instantly changed color, vast and pure white. Xuanze led everyone on the ark, gazing at the sky in astonishment. It was an astonishing sight, as if the springs of the deep had broken open. Gazing at the sky in astonishment, it was an astonishing sight, as if the springs of the deep had broken open. The windows of heaven also opened. Countless raging white currents poured down from the clouds, washing across the entire land. Aside from the ark still floating on the sea, the entire world was submerged in a vast expanse of white foam. The great flood was like a spectacular white waterfall, cascading from the highest point of the sky, 10,000 feet high. Amidst its fury, it engulfed mountains, rivers, and land. What terrifying power this was! In an instant, a world-destroying flood erupted. On the deck of the ship were merchants, nobles, commoners, slaves. Everyone gasped in astonishment. They were the kindest and most understanding group of people, who valued harmony the most. God sent a flood to cleanse the land filled with sin. Those who were savage, cruel, and sinful would be submerged in the flood. This day of the world-destroying flood is called the Day of Catastrophe. The last light of Yanli civilization, Xuanze led the surviving Yanli people on the ark, boarding the final ship. Escaping the great flood, the ship, devoid of people. In a corner, the scribe Biming held a quill pen, sitting exhausted on the deck. Still immersed in the grand and wondrous figure, our world has a round heaven and a square earth. Our world was created by God in just 7 days. What immense power! Biming's hands trembled, tears of old age welled up. He began to use his own imagination to silently complete the story of God's 7-day creation of the world and penned the final chapter of Genesis. Records of God's 7-day creation of the world. On the first day, God said, "Let there be light." There was light, and he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. On the second day, God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water," and separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. On the second day, God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water," and the sky was created. On the third day, God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." The water and dry land were separated. God called the dry land, earth, and the gathered waters he called seas. On the 4th day, the 5th day, the 6th day, the 7th day, heaven and earth and all things were completed. God rested, and on this day, he blessed the 6 preceding days. In the days that followed, people regarded this scribe's imagination as truth, as if the Creator God had indeed explained the details of his 7-day creation of the world before all humanity. But how could God humble himself to explain the details of world creation to lowly subjects? Yet, people were more willing to believe this story. In the narrative, God rested on the 7th day, so people called this day the day of rest, the holy day. Thus, a custom of this land was born. People would also choose to rest on this day. After spraying for a while, making sure nothing was missed, I stopped the high-pressure water gun and quietly turned it off, putting it back in the storage room. In this way, it became a clean slate again. The endless slaughter of the ape insect humans, their excessive reproduction almost destroyed the Sandbox world. Now only one pair of each species remains. Sooner or later, the ecosystem will return to its original state. I hope that after this, they will be more cautious. The Creator's brain next to me said, even if you don't destroy them, they will destroy themselves anyway, devouring all species until nothing is left, and then perishing on their own. It's better to start over now. I sighed with relief. I'm not as weak as you think. You don't need to comfort me. I just feel a little uncomfortable. I let out a long sigh. I'm not as weak as you think. You don't need to comfort me. I just feel a little uncomfortable. The Creator's brain continued. That is a queen hive that gave birth to countless populations and species. You are a great creator and should be accustomed to the rise and fall of various species. The veins in my temple throbbed before I corrected. Stop talking. I am a man. Am I a queen hive? Don't say anything. They are all spores you nurtured with your own hands, one by one. In short, family planning for the ape insect humans is very important. I quickly interrupted him, and sat down on a chair in front of the courtyard, silently peeling and eating fruit. Tomorrow I'll go buy another 2 kilograms of fruit in the city. If I have stomach cancer, I need to take good care of my stomach. I picked up the same old black notebook that I hadn't touched for a long time to write in. This is the age of giant beasts. Originally, I planned to name it the Zoaceous Age, to echo the Cretaceous period of dinosaurs, but since the Yanli people recorded it as the Age of Genesis, then this age will be called the Age of Genesis. Compared to Earth's timeline, the comparable point is the late Cretaceous extinction event where a meteorite destroyed the dinosaurs. Here, it's a great flood that destroyed giant beasts and ape insect humans. In my evolutionary history, I will call it the late Genesis extinction event. I organized my thoughts. After the Dark Age, the Age of Light, and the Age of Rebirth, I opened the 4th page and wrote down the name of the 4th age, the Age of Genesis. Intelligent life appeared. The ape insect human species developed tribal and city-state civilizations. They drove out the giant beasts and became the rulers of this age. However, they were cruel and violent, to the point that the heavens could not bear to watch. So heaven brought forth a world-destroying flood to annihilate all things. The 3rd Great Extinction occurred. Over 99% of life perished. After recording the 3rd extinction, I fell asleep. The next morning, when I got up to wash my face and brush my teeth, I suddenly felt a surging and awe-inspiring power, spreading throughout my body, immediately shocking me. Quickly examined my own body structure. This power is. I looked at myself in the mirror. From my original height, I had grown several more centimeters, reaching 183 centimeters. My facial features looked softer and more handsome, with an elegant and profound aura. My physique was robust and strong, like a perfect Greek sculpture. Taking off my shirt revealed well-defined muscles, but wearing clothes made me look slender. This was the power rewarded from the 3rd Great Extinction. Compared to the previous 2 times, it was countless times stronger. Now I can compare to top athletes. I tried clenching my fist. I felt full of explosive power, but this handsome look and physique. This is like a perfect Norse god, but I suddenly got a headache. Suddenly becoming like this, Su Qing on her side must be furious. She'll definitely scold me for buying some cheating photo editing program. Oh no, someone's going to catch me for research. Can I modify my genes? I immediately asked the creative brain. Modify these dominant genes that express external characteristics back. Such a perfect appearance is too striking when walking on the street. It's the kind that countless people would scream over. To be honest, I was quite satisfied with my old looks. It's already hard enough to get Su Qing and the neighborhood aunties in the village to accept me. Now, if I keep changing back and forth, I'm afraid it will make them completely suspicious. The host has the natural ability to unlock genes and is a hero of the insect tribe. You can modify your own gene segments. Do you want to merge with insect cells? I'm already a hero of the insect tribe. Actually, my body was very weak before. It was difficult to accept modifications. Now my body is stronger. Even if I can accept insect cells, I'm not deciding whether to be human or not. If I wait too long, there will be no life left. Now that my body is stronger, I can accept insect cells. I'm not deciding whether to be human or not. If I just wait, there will be no life left. I can only quietly wait for death from cancer. Being a normal human isn't cool at all. Being an insect is much more interesting. So I whispered to myself, merge with insect cells. Fusion began. Instantly, an intense pain, like my soul being torn apart, spread through me. My entire body was drenched in cold sweat. I collapsed onto the bed, howling in pain. Then I passed out. When I regained consciousness, 3 hours had passed. My entire body was covered in blackish-gray grime. I quickly showered and changed clothes. Only then did I come back to examine my body. My body had changed. It had become full of boundless potential. Now, I was a true insect. I possessed the insect tribe's talent for rapid cell division. My body could control genes at will. I slowly closed my eyes. In the dark dimension, I saw a twisted double helix of DNA. In the human gene, a large amount of useless junk data had been deleted and optimized. Only the essential parts remained. Most of the gene strands were empty. But when I tried to eliminate the cancer cells, the creative brain responded coldly, saying they were a basic component of the genes and could not be removed. I took a deep breath. I couldn't get rid of the human gene. I could only find a way to treat it. The creative brain told me a terrifying truth. Cancer cells are cells that betray the human body. The stronger a person becomes, the stronger the cancer cells become. In other words, as I got stronger, the cancer cells also grew stronger. They were multiplying wildly in my body. This great extinction, if I absorbed a little more energy, I might just die. I couldn't help but be shocked. In this short amount of time, I couldn't handle a fourth great extinction. The power reflected back. I took a deep breath. Prepare and be vigilant, or rather, in a short period, even if they rampage cruelly across this land, I can't arbitrarily eliminate large numbers of them. I took a deep breath. Prepare and be vigilant, or rather, in a short period, even if they rampage cruelly across this land, I can't arbitrarily eliminate large numbers of them. The cards have been shuffled again. I recalled last night how Gilgamesh raged and struggled before death. It also made me feel fear and awe towards death. My stomach cancer has progressed from mid-stage to terminal stage. Death is what all living things fear most. Can I truly survive? I stood up. I walked to the garden gate. Terminal cancer. My remaining time is short. I must hurry in the next age to simulate the civilization of species and supernatural powers in this large sandbox. And from those supernatural powers, find the ability to improve and combat cancer cells. I looked at the sandbox. All things withered. There was almost no vitality. One night had passed, which was equivalent to 40 to 50 years in the sandbox, but it still hadn't fully recovered. Only one pair of each species remained, to slowly repopulate again. And they began to follow God's warning. All living things are equal. Aside from necessary food, unnecessary killing was reduced. They even helped some species reproduce to increase their populations. Meanwhile, after the Great Extinction, strange and exotic new species vaguely appeared. They looked like the sprouts of new life blossoming after the end of the world. Now, they were beginning to stabilize. Development was restarting, but it was still too slow. My illness won't last much longer. I sighed. Should I open a second sandbox to create a new world again? I wanted to open a new sandbox world for evolution, allowing the internal civilization to develop a system of supernatural powers. But it was clearly not very realistic, because in this large sandbox before me, only the nascent sprouts of supernatural power had just appeared. Doing too many things at once is not good. So I changed my idea. Wisdom is not constant. Many things inconsistent with evolutionary theory will follow. Since this is the case, perhaps I should borrow the wisdom of others. My constant solitary pondering is too limited. Many things inconsistent with evolutionary theory will follow. Since this is the case, perhaps I should borrow the wisdom of others. My constant solitary pondering is too limited. It's better to brainstorm and drag a group of people into this with me.